Knowing where we are now, it is absolutely wild to think back upon all of the people who I have seen only continue to defend Crunchyroll's and Sony's price hikes and buyouts and mergers even over the last 2 years. Don't worry, Crunchyroll hasn't raised their prices in years.
Several months later.
Oh, well, it's only the special tiers.
Several months later.
Oh, well, what's the big deal? It's only a few more dollars. You don't have a few more dollars?
Hide the money, y'all! There's poor people around!
They're only merging with and/or buying out all of their major anime-specific competition. The merger is a good thing, guys. All your anime all in one place, working together to give you more.
4 to 6 weeks later.
It's only like 200 and something licenses that they lose by getting rid of the Funimation brand, which you of course no longer have access to, even for streaming. It's not like they're taking away what were supposed to be permanent, perpetual digital licenses and offering you a Crunchyroll sub of all things as compensation.
You will never get your fucking money back.
Did people actually think that all of this was going to lead to everything previously available streaming in one place on one platform at the same price with no loss of physical access to the old shows from those other licensors that they bought out or merged with or took over and rebranded? Did people think that things were actually going to be better now that all of their major anime-specific competition was gone?
That's fine. You have a constitutional right to be a dumbass.
What a joke. All in all, everything has actually been basically the exact opposite of what was promised by both Crunchyroll and its many keyboard defenders, of course. And now, 2 years and some change later, it's only the entire physical store being paywalled behind premium tiers only, not even accessible through the basic tier, and they're only outright selling the physical warehouse that they leased from the physical distribution competitor, Righstuf, whom they once again bought out only to shut down.
Oh, who could have seen this coming?
All of this just as they begin a strict final sale event leading up to that new paywall model for their online store. Gee, I wonder what the natural conclusion of these events might be. I wonder where this is leading. Who can say? By the way, they're also slowly but surely finally starting to lose licenses to their own classic shows like Claymore and Black Lagoon, which they're not going to care about because new seasonal shows are all that people watch on this site anyway. Even classics like FMA Brotherhood, Code Geass, and DBZ are a drop in the bucket when compared to popular new seasonal shows on their platform. Those classic shows all top out at around 80 to 100,000 reviews on Crunchyroll, while Solo Leveling has now reached 1 million, and basically any popular new shonen action series now quickly reaches 300k, basically by default. So there's no reason for them to care about the licenses to those classic shows going away to begin with. There's no incentive whatsoever. They're gonna make way more money and bring in way more subscribers based on those new seasonal shows. Look forward to my video on the quintessential Crunchyroll viewer, by the way, just as soon as I finish this giant spreadsheet of review counts and scores for every show on the platform. But anyway, once again, I'm obviously rambling. Let's save all of that for bigger, broader videos, and instead, let's talk about the current thing. The Crunchyroll store changes coming in August. Otherwise, this will just be another hour-long string of tangents featuring all of the different things that Crunchyroll has done to somehow make me hate them even more in the 2.5 years since my dedicated Crunchyroll hate rants began. So in short, Crunchyroll has announced that their online physical media storefront will be shifting to a members-only model this August. And once again, it won't even be available with the regular sub-tier. It's available only to the top 2 premium tiers, starting at the Mega Fan plan. They're also once again running a summer sale in preparation for this change with strict final sale terms, which they list out on the store update, obviously to avoid returned items unless they're just inarguably damaged or defective. And I would expect Crunchyroll to fight you on that or just send you back what they sent in. I've seen them do this in videos.
I open up the box to this manga box set, and what do I find? The same damn box set. The same one. The shrink wrap imperfections on the top of it are exactly the same. How do I know? Because I took pictures to send to them initially. It was the same damaged box set. Literally, when I sent the damaged one back, RMA, They took it, looked at it, and said, this is okay with this massive damage mark on the top of it and the smushed in corners. And they went and they put it back on the shelf. And then a week later, when they finally processed my replacement, they went over there and they grabbed the same damn box and they shipped it back to me. This time, I literally marked it and said, please don't send me the same damn one again. You're wasting my time. It took me 2 months just to get the replacement and it be decent enough that I'm like, I don't want to bother anymore. I'll accept this. Wash my hands of it.
But anyways, as I mentioned earlier, their Grimes, Iowa warehouse, once again, the one that they leased from Righstuf, the physical media distributor who they bought out only to shut down because they obviously didn't want it competing with the Crunchyroll store. Don't know what the point of that was. That warehouse is also now listed for sale on LoopNet. And we all know what this actually means. They're clearing out stock of regular items like anime Blu-rays and manga to downsize their physical media footprint and squeeze more devoted and niche members for higher sub rates just to access limited run merch. Think that sounds like crazy speculation? Well, here's what the update I got when I actually logged into Crunchyroll today said. And I quote, "Going fast, grab yours now. The selection is thinning. Shop what's left before it disappears." Their words, not mine. Sony, as well as Aniplex, of course, their other production company subsidiary, and by way of them, Crunchyroll began buying out the majority of the physical anime industry just 5 years ago, as well as much of their streaming competition, shutting down competition after buying them out and rebranding foreign distributors in both the US and the UK as Crunchyroll one by one. Once again, Sony already owns Aniplex as well as multiple studios, A1 and Cloverworks, and they even tried to buy out Japan's third largest publisher, Kadokawa, just a year and a half ago. And now they appear to just be trashing the whole physical thing. Little different than how Sony PlayStation is now canceling physical disc production of new games as of 2028. And I want to repeat and rephrase that because it really does feel like a lot of people still don't get this. Sony intentionally destroyed at least half of the physical media market and most of their anime-specific streaming competition. They did it on purpose, not just with Righstuf and Funimation and VRV, but all of these UK distributors as well. Wakanim, Manga Entertainment, Kaze, blah blah blah. All bought out and replaced by Crunchyroll. It's a crying shame that they're even allowed to do any of that, but that's just what publicly traded entertainment companies do, unfortunately, and we just treat it like it's normal and acceptable. Ah yes, the wonders of the free market. But anyway, there are a few different FAQ entries on the store's update page as well, but the most important one that I should mention before moving on is the following question. Can I still use my Crunchyroll store gift card? The reply to which is, we will continue to support gift cards through August 14th, 2026. Afterwards, please contact our help center for any questions about your outstanding balance. End quote. Once again, we can read between the lines here. If you don't use your gift card before that date, if you don't use your gift card before they switch over to the new paywalled model, you're going to be dealing with Crunchyroll's likely dwindling customer support about your balance. And I'd be willing to bet, allegedly, that you're either going to lose it or they're just going to try to offer you a few free months of Crunchyroll subscriptions and tell you to go screw yourself, as they have done in the past multiple times in similar situations. So if you have a Crunchyroll gift card, use it before you lose it. And best of luck if you currently have outstanding pre-orders or whatever with them. Good luck, bro. That's all I know to tell you. But anyway, speculation once again, but I'd be willing to guess, personally, just my guess, that they're going to scale back on Blu-ray production of anime in general, focusing only on the top 10 to 20% most popular shows, which they know will move relatively more volume, even physically. Think your Solo Levelings and your Jujutsu Kaisens and your Demon Slayers and the like. If they plan to continue printing regular run anime releases at all. Obviously that's pure speculation, but we know that Sony's other division, PlayStation, has already announced that they'll be ceasing Blu-ray production of new games in 2028. And I'm not going to go through it all in this video. I made a giant video on the overall Sony situation, which you can go check out if you want to hear about tons of details on both sides of this and why why I truly believe that this is all a top-down Sony thing, but Crunchyroll is already locking their physical product store behind a paywall as well, so whatever Blu-rays they do produce in the future will either be locked behind an exclusive members-only paywall, or they'll just outsource the distribution of them to someone like Amazon, which, to be fair, is probably preferable to dealing with the Crunchyroll store anyway. But anyway, if you're looking for ways to support physical media distribution of anime, you should check out GKids/Shout Factory.
Please stand by for further details. We return you now to your regularly scheduled program.
I don't know why I thought it would be reasonable to just like go through all of these on the fly, but I pulled everything forward that was like a non-standard release, like a non-standard Crunchyroll or Sentai Filmworks release. And once again, like I said, there's GKids, Shout Factory. I've got all these freaking Ghibli movies and Satoshi Kon movies, like Millennium Actress and the like, that they license. You can get pretty much any of the Ghibli movies or the Satoshi Kon movies through GKids/Shout Factory. All really great, well-made movies, obviously, and you can own them for yourselves. Some other stuff they do, one thing that people might be really interested in is the freaking Dandadan Blu-ray release. They're going to be doing the Season 2 release as well, so you can pick up, I'm guessing, all of Dandadan moving forward on Blu-ray from GKids/Shout Factory. They do Neon Genesis Evangelion. The only downside to this release is it doesn't come with the Fly Me to the Moon. I think it has the original dub on it. Don't quote me on that, I could be wrong. It's possible that it's the Netflix dub. Either way, it's a good release. It's been a while since I watched it. But yeah, they got Dandadan, they got Neon Genesis Evangelion, they do some Masaki Yuasa releases, such as this one, The Night is Short, Walk On Girl, Weathering With You. So obviously they do some of the, oh god, what's his name? Makoto Shinkai releases. I think some of them are through Crunchyroll as well, but some of them are through GKids. Nadia, The Secret of Blue Water, another old Hideaki Anno series. And lastly, I think this is the last GKids release I have, Children of the Sea. It's a really well-directed movie, and Joe Hisaishi does the soundtrack for it. So, once again, point being, there's a ton of different, really great movies and series that you can own physically through GKids without giving any money to companies like Crunchyroll. Oh yeah, and there are a couple of other things that I forgot to mention. As it concerns GKids themselves, I think these guys are actually really interesting and are doing some really good work. They've been working on 4K restorations of like the old Ghost in the Shell movies, as well as Angel's Egg and projects like that. And those projects that they're doing 4K restorations on, a lot of them they've actually brought to theaters in the US. They also, not too long ago, brought a few episodes of Dandadan to theaters in the US, and another two of these theater run events that they've been doing recently actually include the Revolutionary Girl Utena movie and End of Evangelion. So they're not afraid, once again, to go back to the old Ghost in the Shell movies and even Angel's Egg. They're not afraid to at least make an effort to bring relatively niche shows and movies to theater, not just the big action shonen, which is basically all that Crunchyroll does. And yeah, on top of, obviously, as I mentioned, Ghibli films and Satoshi Kon films and Masaaki Yuasa films and the like, these guys have just been doing really great work, really covering the gambit of classic shows and classic movies, modern shonen series like Dandadan. They're trying to break into that market, classic films, yada yada yada. You get the point. I really like GKids. I think they're doing great work, and I would really like to see them have great success with what they've been doing, because if their presence were to start blowing up, it would be really good for the physical distribution industry. And I just think of all the ones that I'm mentioning here, not to knock any of the others, but I do feel like they've shown the most potential so far to really break into that market as a heavy hitter. But anyway, back to whatever we were talking about. You can also check out AnimeEigo. I believe the only two physical releases I currently have by them are Otaku no Video and Riding Bean. This is a really good one. Pretty short movie. Basically the pilot before Gunsmith Cats. Really entertaining. Super 80s. But once again, you can check out their catalog online. They do a lot of live action stuff as well, but lots of classic, more niche, like old anime OVA type releases. Such as these two, obviously. There's also Diskotek Media, who has releases of Jinro the Wolf Brigade, Gunbuster. I'm not sure about Die Buster. I don't think they do Die Buster. School Days. Don't ask me why I have this. It's DVD, so you can tell I bought it quite a while ago. But also, Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust. I just watched this one not too long ago. Definitely worth the hype. Once again, that's the kind of stuff you can own from Diskotek Media. Oh yeah, there was one more Diskotek Media release that I forgot to get off the shelf. This is a really freaking good OVA. Definitely not for the faint of heart. Definitely not for the easily offended or anyone who doesn't like sex and hyperviolence. But I'll also say one thing that's really nice about this release, once again through Diskotek Media, is they have both cuts of the OVA. So if you want to watch the version that doesn't have any of the arguably smutty scenes, I absolutely think that they actually, really count for the story and the characterization of everyone. But if you don't want to see that version with those scenes, you can just watch the version that doesn't have it. Both versions are available on this Blu-ray. As well as that, there are also companies like Media Blasters and Kitty Media who license, can I show this? I think I can show this, maybe just cover up that part. Who license actual adult anime. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, this is the only one that I have. It's absolutely beautiful. And once again, like to speak of what I mentioned earlier, Kite having multiple versions of the movie that you can watch, there are tons of releases. For example, this Berserk release, which is also Diskotek Media. Blu-ray releases have special features and stuff. The Berserk, for example, is pretty famous for its freaking outtakes.
You talk too much. I should probably be saying something right now.
Nothing less than the commander of the Gamagada and the Ganibangana too. Yeah! Nothing less from the commander of the Hawks Raiders. You're a... God damn it!
You did a good job.
Bullshit. I'll be there till the end, even if I have to kill you.
I've never had anything else except my sword. Except else. Forget the else.
Oh, God, my arm! Shut up! Hear me now, but believe me later. I crush you with my muscles. Run! Get to the chopper! You want to stick a knife in me? See what's going on in there? Come see my new movie, Collateral Damage.
Who is that?
Oh, come and rock me, Amadeus.
Come here, Mini-Me. Can I have a hug? I love you. You complete me.
But as I was mentioning, this release, Another Lady Innocent by Kitty Media, even this freaking H-anime Blu-ray release has all kinds of special features, including an interviewer with the director of this H-anime, which, as far as I can tell, basically bankrupted the studio who made it. It was so freaking well made. They have a preview of the second episode, but there's no second episode because the studio just went bankrupt making this thing. But it's got a freaking fascinating interview on there with the director of this utterly gorgeous H-anime that looks so much better than anything from that era has any right to look as a freaking adult.
It's called hentai, and it's art.
I don't care what it's called! I hate them!
But yeah, this is a release that looks far better than any adult anime had any right to look, especially in that era. I think this was before, like, Pink Pineapple, for example. Maybe I'm wrong, but very classic aesthetic and all that stuff. But once again, more importantly, you can go listen to the director of this gorgeous freaking H-anime and see old original trailers and drama CD stuff like that. All kinds of fascinating extra features. You're never gonna get any of this stuff on a streaming platform. Obviously, Sentai Filmworks still does consistent releases of the stuff that they license through High Dive for streaming, which includes, of course, a lot of the newer, risque, or niche releases. A lot of times I feel like, maybe it's stuff that Crunchyroll didn't even want. Sometimes it feels that way, but they license a lot of stuff, obviously, each new season. But that's not all that they do. The seasonal stuff would obviously include stuff like Oshinoko and the like, being some of their more popular releases, but they also license Ninja Scroll. So they do have some interest in getting into classic anime movies. Once again, really freaking good movie. Very 80s, very old school manime type anime. And yeah, this one's pretty cheap, definitely worth owning. Oh yeah, I totally forgot to bring this up in the original recording when I was talking about Sentai Filmworks, aka High Dive. As I mentioned, they have shown some efforts and interest in getting into classic anime series and movies, not just new seasonal stuff. Another example of that is Nana. This is a really good romantic comedy, music, shoujo type deal. I think it's like 50 episodes, 6 discs. I'm not gonna pretend you're gonna get this one very cheap if you do want it, but it is once again nice to see that they're actually interested in providing a way to get a hold of this relatively niche but cult classic series. And it's really good, by the way. It is really, really freaking good. Other than that, the other thing that I remembered, and this is one I don't think they make available anymore. It's now available through GKids, but at one point they were making Grave of the Fireflies available on Blu-ray. So once again, just more proof that this is something they're interested in. And I do think if people show them that there is an interest for releases like that through the Ninja Scroll Blu-ray, for example, there might be more examples of that in the future. But anyway, I would show off more of my Sentai collection, but I would end up pulling like half of my stuff off of the freaking shelf. I guess the only other thing I will mention, I was gonna bring these up later when just talking about big collections that you can get fairly cheap for the amount of anime that you actually get for them, but some of the larger collections they do, which are very affordable, at least relatively speaking, for anime Blu-rays. There's the K-On! Ultimate Collection and the Hidamari Sketch Picture Perfect Collection. So if you're into slice of life anime, artsy fartsy slice of life anime about art and music and the like, also some really good series that you can own physically pretty cheap, once again through Sentai Filmworks, same company as High Dive. And once again, I mean, obviously the thing that I love most about them is like everything they license through High Dive, it's pretty much gonna get a physical release, and it's not gonna be super overpriced the way that a lot of the popular Crunchyroll releases like Solo Leveling are. Solo Leveling, as I've mentioned before, being twice the price of Dandadan, even though you get the same amount of anime, once through Crunchyroll, once through GKids, the Crunchyroll release is twice the price. Very cool of Crunchyroll. But once again, Sentai Filmworks, you gotta at least love that they license a ton of stuff, kind of go with the shotgun approach on that, and if it gets a streaming license, it's probably gonna get a physical license as well, and hopefully they'll do more stuff like Ninja Scroll in the future. So, I mean, if you want to support that, you might see more like that moving forward, hopefully. Warner Bros. Has had a few major anime releases recently, one of them being the US version of Chainsaw Man. I don't have that because I have the UK release, which came out way earlier. Once again, UK release is typically cheaper, although they're getting slimmer and slimmer pickings thanks to Crunchyroll. But the other thing that Warner Bros. Has recently licensed would be like all of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I don't have all of it yet, but I'm working on it. And yeah, I mean, these are Viz and Warner Bros. Releases, so once again, at least it ain't Sony Crunchyroll. With that said, speaking of more risque and niche releases, Ocean Vale is another company who's been trying to get into that scene through streaming. I haven't looked into this myself. I've just heard Otaku Spirit talking about it in some of his videos, so once again, Ocean Vale, just another one that you might check out if you're interested in that kind of material. And am I forgetting anyone else? Let me know if I'm forgetting anyone in the comments. Maybe one of you out there knows more about this than I even do. Also, and I'm not telling you to go spend a bunch of money you don't have on stuff you don't need or want, but if there are rare physical releases or imports that you've been eyeballing for a while but never ordered, you might want to think about grabbing those before they're potentially gone as well. I've personally rounded up physical releases, many of them the cheaper import releases, such as this one, for example, and a few of these, for example. If you were to go through the US distributor of these, Fate Zero and the Monogatari series, you would be going through Aniplex, and their releases are basically limited edition run only, and they're unbelievably freaking expensive for like little 12 episode series. It's completely ridiculous, but once again, you can get them much cheaper through these UK distributors. By the way, yes, you will need a region-free Blu-ray player if you plan to start importing Blu-rays from different regions. But these days, they're actually really easy to get a hold of. You used to have to buy these from specialty shops online, but now you can literally just order one from Amazon, and there are all sorts of different ones from different brands. The one that I have is ironically a Sony. And basically all you have to do for DVDs, the one that I have at least, it's a little bit more modern, it automatically detects the region for the DVDs and switches back and forth without any issue. For Blu-rays, you'll basically let the disc player out and press the color button, which corresponds to the region that you're setting it for, you know, the specific Blu-ray that you're about to play. And as long as you get one that's done properly, it's going to be hardware modified, not just software modified, so you shouldn't have to worry about installing updates as long as you get one that's been done properly with hardware modification. Updates won't break that region-free compatibility. And while this might seem like an expensive investment, if you have any intention of investing in a reasonably large Blu-ray collection, this will end up saving you money in the long run. And even if you just plan on buying like a handful of your favorites, if your favorites include any of the anime that are licensed through Sony Aniplex within the US, we're talking your Gurren Lagans, your Kill la Kills, your Fate Zeros, your Bakemonogatari, Nisei Monogatari, Kizu Monogatari, etc, etc. By the way, I should clarify that this also includes titles like Sword Art Online, Fate Zero, and Garden of Sinners. I just checked today, and at the time of recording this update, the Aniplex US release of SAO is currently going for around $150. That's just for Season 1. Fate Zero is going for $80 to $100. Gurren Lagann is $200 or more. Kill la Kill, $180 or more. Garden of Sinners is nearly $400. And Bakemonogatari, $500+. And I remind you that that's just the first season. 12 episodes. This has been the result of Aniplex's limited edition only sales model for decades and for years. The only way to get around those price points has been ordering those Region 2 imports from these distributors mostly found in the UK, of which there are now exactly 2 remaining, independent of the unholy trinity of Sony, Aniplex, and Crunchyroll. Anything that's licensed through Sony Aniplex in the US is gonna be like $100 to $200 for the US version, and in many cases you can get it instead $20 to $50 for the UK version. So you can imagine how much money you're gonna end up saving even after just a few Blu-rays. But anyway, that's all to say, yes, you'll need a region-free Blu-ray player if you plan on importing anime Blu-rays, but they're really easy to use, they're not difficult, they're easy to get a hold of, they're not that expensive, and once again, if you actually plan on building up a collection, you're going to save money in the long run, I assure you. The savings may be relatively small with some of the more standard Crunchyroll releases, only saving a couple of dollars here and there, but they're gonna add up over time, and if you're ordering anything that is licensed by Aniplex, you're gonna save tons of money instantly after your very first freaking purchase. Also, if you get a nice region-free Blu-ray player, another thing that you can look forward to, and I'm not going to pretend that this is necessarily, you know, as robust and as flexible as what you could do on a PC with local files and the like, but if you get that region-free Blu-ray player and a nice thumb drive, mine's an SSK, I think this is like 2 terabytes. You can actually play all kinds of files, including freaking multi-track audio MKV files on that Blu-ray player. You're gonna wanna make sure and check the description to see if the Blu-ray player you're looking at is gonna be capable of that. But if you get one that can do that, obviously that's gonna be super convenient if you have a lot of locally stored anime, blah, blah, blah. The one limitation, at least the one limitation that I've experienced with my Sony Blu-ray player, I'll throw the model that I have on screen so that you can see basically what I'm working with. But the one limitation, scratch that 2 limitations. The 2 limitations that I've had with it are A, there's not really any subtitle customization, and the default subtitles for this Blu-ray player are not amazing. I'm not saying they're unreadable, but they're not great either, and I really wish you could customize them, make them larger, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of embarrassing that you can't. Another thing that's, once again, frankly, just unbelievably embarrassing about this thing, it's a Sony Blu-ray player. It's fairly up to date. It was a pretty expensive model because I wanted to get a nice one. It doesn't have a Crunchyroll app. It's a Sony Blu-ray player and it doesn't have a Crunchyroll app. How? How is that possible? And everyone online claims that like it's impossible to add one through firmware updates, it makes no sense. It makes absolutely no freaking sense. They obviously just have no interest in making that a thing that you can do through their Blu-ray players, and yet it has Netflix and Amazon Prime on it. Just wild. But anyway, back to whatever we were talking about. Back to the distributors themselves, such as this one, for example, and a few of these, for example. If you were to go through the US distributor of these, Fate Zero and the Monogatari series, you would be going through Aniplex, and their releases are basically limited edition run only, and they're unbelievably freaking expensive for like little 12 episode series. It's completely ridiculous, but once again, you can get them much cheaper through these UK distributors. MVM Entertainment is the one who does all of these. Luckily, they're one of the few that is still around, so you should be able to pick up some of these, but that's not the case for a lot of them. Obviously, some of the other ones that I've picked up have been the UK release of Psycho-Pass by Manga Entertainment. Once again, as usual, it's just cheaper than the US release. Tends to be the rule, and obviously they're trying to get rid of every bit of competition they have in the UK for that reason. I assure you, that is the reason. Ghost in the Shell, once again, way cheaper than the US alternative. Ghost in the Shell standalone complex, the whole series, 2 Blu-ray cases worth. Same thing with Garden of Sinners. I don't think you can, yeah, you can barely even see that, but once again, same thing with Garden of Sinners. I would not by any means want to have to buy the freaking Aniplex release of all these. But as you can see, I mean, you can tell just by the fact that the rating codes look different on these that you're looking at a UK release. There'll be these little red and white tags such as that. Same on these. And once again, Toradora, another MVM release, so you can probably get that one if that would be something that you're interested in actually owning. This Wolf's Rain release, once again, you can tell it's a UK release by this, but alltheanime.com, I have no idea. I have no idea who alltheanime.com is. I'm not sure if this one's still around or not, but got Wolf's Rain pretty cheap, luckily, because there was, once again, one of these UK releases available for it. Okay, so I did go back and do a little bit more research into All the Anime, and as it turns out, this is actually the same company as Anime Limited, and it is also the same company as Anime Ltd, which I guess Ltd is limited. That's the name that I knew them for. I actually recently ordered the Kill la Kill set from these guys, and although it was still a little bit expensive since I had to order each part separately, it was not $180 plus, which is what you would pay Aniplex for it in the US. But anyway, these guys actually are still in business, but technically not too long ago they were acquired by Toho Animation. So obviously you probably know Toho for Godzilla, and you probably also know them for Jujutsu Kaisen. They publish the anime, not the manga, but they do publish the anime. Toho Animation is obviously a pretty big deal. But yeah, these guys do still exist, and as you can see, they've actually got their own versions of some pretty popular releases with Dandadan and Sakamoto Days, blah blah blah. I'm not gonna go into every little detail, but obviously you can visit their website and see some of the stuff that they have available and some of the stuff that you can pre-order through them. But this is one of the only ones that I know of that is still actually functioning in the UK. So that's one of the ones that's available to you where your support actually, you know, really counts for something. Hoping to keep the demand around for this UK import anime Blu-ray market to actually exist moving forward. The other one that I mentioned was obviously MVM Films, and you can go to their website as well to see some of the stuff that they have on offer. Once again, you can go in here and look at a bunch of the stuff that they have and probably find the links to where you can get it. I haven't ordered directly through any of these distributors. I'm not going to pretend that I have, so I don't really know how that would work. But this is another website that you could visit to see what kind of catalog they have available. And once again, MVM Films is still around and still independent, not just a part of the Sony Crunchyroll anime cartel, so to speak. One of the others that I mentioned here was Diskotek Media. As you can see, they've got Gunbuster. They've also got a ton of classic 80s-esque, 80s manime-esque releases that you can get from them, such as Goku Midnight Eye, I think Geno Cyber, Wicked City, Demon City of Shinjuku, etc. Stuff like that. And just something funny that I noticed here. There are links which link out to the Crunchyroll store, which is obviously going to be pretty pointless fairly soon. But they still say Righstuf. I don't know why. I found that funny. Maybe you will too. But yeah, that's Diskotek Media. Mostly old school 80s, 90s manime-esque releases. Gunbusters right here, of course. That's another OVA series similar to that. I believe AnimeEigo was another one who I brought up. I've got a couple of releases by these guys. Technically, as it turns out, if you go to animeeigo.com, it now redirects. As it says here, they're now part of Media OCD. By the way, actually, AnimeEigo and Diskotek Media are both a part of Media OCD. I thought I would clarify that as long as I'm going through all of these companies in this much detail anyway, and it certainly makes the prospect of them becoming an even more major contributor to the physical anime distribution market feel that much more realistic. So the management of AnimeEigo always seemed fairly chill. You can follow a lot of these people individually on X. I'm blanking on the actual CEO's name right now, but he's fairly active on there. And you might know Shabes, aka Caribou-kun. He was also a part of the AnimeEigo management. I say he was, he probably still is. Once again, just another resource that's available to you, like Diskotek Media. This is another US distributor who does a lot of classic re-releases. A lot of Lupin the Third movies here. Kekaishi, the classic shonen anime that no one remembers. But yeah, obviously there's a bunch of anime and live action stuff on here. I won't prattle on endlessly about what all is available through them, but that's another option that you have available. And obviously you can view some of their catalog on their website right here. Also still available in the US, as I mentioned earlier, is GKids. I've already talked a lot about them, so I won't prattle on endlessly, but as you can see, July 21st, in just a couple of days, they're going to be running The End of Evangelion in theater, so that's probably not going to be available where I'm at because I live in the fucking boonies, but it might be available where you are, and I imagine watching The End of Evangelion in theater would be a freaking blast. But that's just me. Anyway, all sorts of stuff on their site. You can go here and go through what they have available for order or pre-order or whatever. And last, and certainly most niche, there is Media Blasters. Now, as it turns out, I mentioned both Media Blasters and Kitty Media earlier. As it turns out, those are technically the same company. Kitty Media is the branch of Media Blasters, which they use to distribute H anime. So that's the difference. Learn something every day. Once again, as you can see here, Kamen Rider is one release that they have. I know I've seen them attached to other like more normal classic anime Blu-ray releases. I just cannot seem to remember which ones I was looking at, and I don't think I actually own any by them. So I may even be thinking about something that they no longer distribute. But anyway, once again, just another place that you can go and go through a catalog of physical releases that you might or might not be interested in. Sentai Filmworks, once again, pretty self-explanatory. I think everyone already pretty much knows who they are and what they do, but they also have their own catalog on their website. As per usual, it's always worth looking at what is available on their websites, comparing the prices to what you might be able to find on Amazon, comparing the prices of that to any UK alternative releases that you might be able to find. There's often at least one way or another to save some money depending on who you go with and where you order that Blu-ray from. For example, while both Crunchyroll and Sentai Filmworks are both currently running summer sales, many of Crunchyroll's Blu-ray releases for many of its more major series are still currently cheaper on Amazon than on their own store.
Amazing.
While many of Sentai's releases, even ones as popular as Eminence in the Shadow, The Dangers in My Heart, and Oshinoko and the like, are currently cheaper on their own website than on Amazon. How shocking. And back to the video. Obviously, look into your options. You might save a little bit of money here and there, and obviously it adds up over time if you plan on having a nice, hearty physical collection. I mentioned Warner Bros as well earlier, but I actually literally wasn't able to find any of their anime on the website, so I'm guessing you can only order their stuff through Amazon or perhaps through Viz. But yeah, I think that's all I had to talk about as far as these are concerned. Back to wherever we were in the video. But once again, just unfortunately, the reality is a lot of those companies, your manga entertainments and your Kazes and the like, Kaze, probably the biggest release I have from them being Code Geass. Once again, cheap release. Gotta love it. All of these distributors, or most of them at least, once again, setting aside MVM Entertainment, most of these distributors, they're either gone or they're functionally gone, where they've been rebranded as Crunchyroll. And what's left of those releases, who those distributors licensed and released back in the day, probably not gonna last forever. They're gonna dry up at some point. At some point, someone is going to have bought every copy of these more niche UK releases made by companies who don't even exist anymore. The one other thing that I might consider, if you're like me and you really care about physical collection of these things, actually owning your favorite shows. There are also a few of these releases, which I once again don't by any means think are gonna last forever. Your anime classic lines by Funimation, and for example, your save editions. I don't know if you can see that little spline in here, but Funimation did a lot of these save editions, which you could once again pick up for like $10, $20, super cheap. And I mean, you can tell, clear plastic. It's not like the most premium release ever, but even these, they still had the freaking flippable covers on the inside and outside. Multi-disc release with 4 discs on here, 26 episodes. Pick this up for like 10 or 20 bucks. Here's what's crazy. Like, I complain about all this stuff. Go look up how much this costs now, because you can't get it anymore. You can't get it anymore. And so people are willing to pay 10 times what these costed back when I bought them. Some of these freaking DVDs, I paid $5 and $10 for during the freaking 13 days of Righstuf sales back in the day, during Christmas sales that Righstuf ran. And these were insane sales, like nothing you see today. Physical media that you could get and own unbelievably cheap. And as I continue dancing around the point, feels like it's going away sometimes. So once again, maybe consider supporting some of the releases that you can still get, whether those are local companies in your country or they're imports. Once again, here's another pretty impressive one. You can pick up the Cowboy Bebop movie, Manga Entertainment import, and it was cheaper than the US release, even though I had to import it. That's why I bought this version, because it's cheaper. Another thing that I would imagine is most certainly going away, if it isn't already purely a used market, are Righstuf, and by way of them, Nozomi Entertainment's own line of Blu-rays and DVDs. And this would include things like Hideaki Anno's, the director of Evangelion's, romantic comedy from back in the day, one of the best around, His and Her Circumstances. Got it on DVD, pretty cheap back in the day. I would be scared to look this up now. I bet it's not cheap anymore. Full Metal Alchemist, once again, Manga Entertainment release, 50-something episodes, super cheap release. Aria the animation. These are getting harder and harder to find, more expensive once again. And I'm probably repeating myself, but once again, the crazy thing is, you've seen Sony and Crunchyroll buy out so many of these companies, and the availability has only gotten lower and lower. And the shows have only gotten more and more expensive because they're just not being distributed the way that they were back when there were all these different companies providing this service. The one counterpoint that I guess I feel is necessary to make, just to be completely honest, Crunchyroll does at least currently have a Crunchyroll Essentials line. I can't remember what all is on that line, but I want to say maybe Lucky Star is one of them. I lied. Funimation Essentials is Funimation. It's not Crunchyroll.
I've got nothing left. I've got nothing left.
Funimation. Look at that Funimation digital copy. It hurts. I still pick one of these up sometimes and get a slip of paper inside of them with a Funimation digital copy. And the sensation of opening that up, it's something. Anyway, I'm probably spinning my wheels on that one. One more Kaze release that I do have, Rojin Z. Another classic, old school, sci-fi, dystopian type of thing. This one was directed by Katsuhiro Otomo, the director of Akira. So that's another one you might be able to pick up cheap still. I think Crunchyroll has some kind of cheaper line that they still do for a, certain subset of shows, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I was really just confusing it with the freaking Funimation Essentials line. Point being, you do still have access to a lot of this stuff for now. So if it's something that you're interested in, you might want to start looking into it now while it's still available, while the prices haven't totally and catastrophically risen beyond what anyone would consider reasonable. Like, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't know that I would pay $200 just to own Birdie the Mighty Decode. And if things continue trending in the direction that they have been, that's going to become more and more the standard for now out-of-print releases. But anyway, I feel like I've made my point, at least offered you some options if you want to go support physical distribution through certain companies, or if you just want to go back and look at some of the stuff that used to be available readily that is slowly going away that you might still be able to get cheap. Once again, as far as UK imports go, if you really want to support a UK import company, look into MVM Entertainment. I believe they're one of the only ones that's actually left, but all of the other UK import companies that I know of are, once again, either gone or have been rebranded as Crunchyroll. So I would expect that all of their releases are now only available in limited quantities. Anyway, I think I've went on long enough about that. That was a lot of off-script rambling, but maybe that at least helps to illuminate what the situation really is, all in all, for the physical distribution of anime, what options you do still have, which ones have already went away, where resources are dwindling for old releases, which ones are still available, which ones aren't available anymore, which ones might be going away or might not, blah blah blah, and which ones are still available to you in both the US and the UK, where you can actually continue to provide ongoing support to the people who are still supporting physical releases of anime. Also, obviously, if you just feel guilty because you want to support animators and would be willing to give it to someone who isn't a blatantly evil global conglomerate who wants an anime monopoly so bad they can taste it, you also have the option to give it to Studio Trigger and or the Animator Dormitory Project on Patreon instead. You can also give to the Animator Dormitory Project on Pixiv Fanbox or donate a one-time sum on Go Get Funding as well for their yearly support run. I doubt I have to explain who Studio Trigger is, but recently they did Dungeon Meshi, the second season of Panty and Stocking, Cyberpunk Edge Runners, as well as obviously the upcoming season 2 of Cyberpunk Edge Runners, blah blah blah. They did Gurren Lagann and Kill la Kill and all that good stuff back in the day. A lot of it is composed of people who came from Studio Gainax back in the day. It may have still technically been Studio Gainax who did Gurren Lagann, but I won't lie, some of that blurs together for me sometimes. But I mean, if you want to know where the talent that left Studio Gainax went, it's mostly at Studio Trigger. That's why all of their shows look so freaking good still. But anyway, as far as the Animator Dormitory Project goes, it's basically exactly what it sounds like. They provide affordable housing and an environment where new upcoming animators, people who don't have enough money to afford a regular apartment or a home, can live in this animator dormitory and I believe get some training and work on promotional materials for the Animator Dormitory Project. They do a lot of these, blah blah blah. I'm sure you get the basic idea of what this is. It's called the Animator Dormitory Project, and believe me, they need it, judging by the kind of pay that you see some of these animators getting. I would usually also plug Buta Productions right here, but I think one of their leads might be in legal trouble at the moment, according to reports that I've seen from a few months ago. I haven't followed up on that, and I'm not telling you not to give them money. I do think the studio has worked on a lot of good shows through freelance gigs, and it's always nice to support small groups like that directly. But what I am telling you is they haven't made a Patreon update post since that news came out, as far as I can tell, if I've got the dates right. So do with that information what you will. For now, I would definitely prioritize, once again, Studio Trigger and the Animator Dormitory Project. Those are kind of the obvious goes to. Give $5 to each of them a month, and you're giving the amount of money that you would typically be giving to a streaming service. And it's actually going to animators. It's actually going to studios. It's actually going to animators. It's not just going to streaming services and production companies, which will never reach the freaking animators to begin with. This is your yearly reminder that giving money to a streaming service is the lowest possible version of supporting animation, but that's just me. The point is, the greater point here is you do still have choices. You can also obviously research more independent creators on Pixiv Fanbox and probably some on Ko-Fi and Patreon as well. You don't have to give your money to Crunchyroll to support the industry. And beyond I would not feel guilty about watching great shows wherever you can get a hold of them. This is as good as time as any to say it. You might not like the idea of piracy, generally speaking, but there are many cases where it's the only way to access some of the best shows around, especially the classics. And to refuse to support a company like Crunchyroll, who is actively trying to ruin many segments of the anime industry, is not a point against you. Just go give your money to people who are actually doing good work and not intentionally trying to destroy entire portions of the industry that they claim to want to help facilitate and nurture. But anyway, screw Crunchyroll, screw Sony Crunchyroll, and screw this no, you have to support the industry mindset. Give your money to the people who actually deserve it. Give your money to the people who are actually working on the shows, and watch your anime wherever you can and wherever you want. It's literally just the morally superior thing to do at this point, at least with the way things are going with companies like Sony Crunchyroll. And obviously people will always ask, yeah, but I don't know how to find it. It's not that hard to find. Google search, the obvious thing to Google search, add Reddit at the end. You'll find some threads that tell you where to go. You'll probably also find, if you look long enough, an archive of all of the sites that are still active and being run by their original quote unquote management. You can find archives for all of this stuff. As far as doing it safely, use a good browser. I wouldn't use Chrome or Firefox. I wouldn't use either of those. I would use Brave or Opera or something like that. You want to have an antivirus, obviously. Bitdefender is a good free one. If you want an anti-malware program, Malwarebytes is once again a really good free one. Although I really think that you can get away with just Bitdefender as far as actual programs on your computer go. Within Brave or Opera, whatever you're going to use as your browser, I would also install a couple of extensions. And by the way, I would do this regardless of whether I'm using an official or an unofficial site. There is literally no reason to think that nothing bad is happening on the official site. They're not good people. They will sell your information. They will track you. They will use those cookies against you. They're not good people. They're not good companies. Don't trust them just because they're official sites. You want to have an antivirus, you want to have a good browser, and you want to have extensions like Pop-Up Blocker Strict, uBlock Origin, and one of my favorites, which I don't hear a lot of people bring up, but WOT Web of Trust, which is just an extension that provides you with user-generated scores for websites as you're looking up in your search engines. So when you go to search for a website to watch your show on, you're going to get a rating, a green check mark, a yellow check mark, or a red check mark. You hover above it and it'll tell you why the user generated score is positive or why it's negative. And if you've got all of this stuff running on your computer, if you click on something, if you try to go to a website and you have 2 or 3 pop-ups, if you have a pop-up from your antivirus and a pop-up in your browser from uBlock Origin or Brave's Shields or whatever, if everything is screaming, what are you doing on this website? Obviously go back and find a different website. But usually if it's a bad website, these things won't even let you get there without you saying, no, I know what I'm doing. It's not that dangerous. It's definitely not that much dangerous than just being on an official website, which is once again not safe to begin with. You want to always wear protection on the internet. Another thing that I've heard other people talking about, this isn't something that I do because I've got all of this other stuff that I just mentioned, but another thing that I've seen some people say they do is go into the settings for their browser and make sure that their browser requires them to approve any and all potential downloads. So like anytime a website is trying to get them to download a file, they have to manually approve it every time. So anytime the computer's like, hey, download this thing, and you don't know what it is because you didn't ask to download anything, you know to just exit out and don't download that crap. Which is all to say, it's not really that complicated. You install a few things, you get your settings right, you go check out some Reddit threads, you find a good archive of good active sites, and now you have access to everything that you want access to. And you have plenty of measures to keep you safe on your computer. As far as mobile goes, I also like casting from my phone to my TV. In that case, I just use Web Videocast. I have the premium version. It's just a couple dollars for a one-time payment, but it has an ad blocker built in. once you have the premium version. And once again, you can just cast it straight to your TV. It doesn't work with any of the official platforms because they block you from accessing their streams. Once again, doesn't work because they block you from accessing those streams. So even once again, like in the case of Netflix, who doesn't let you cast anymore, they just got rid of casting. You could use this app to cast, but they won't let you. Same thing with Crunchyroll. You can cast with the Crunchyroll app, but you can't set a manual resolution and make sure that it sticks to that resolution. Well, with Web Video Caster, you can set a manual resolution and it will stick to that resolution. But once again, that's another feature you have through that app, which is free if you just get the free version. Free third-party app gives you a feature that is not available in any of the freaking official platforms in their official apps. It just blows my mind. Obviously, I could go to ranting about screenshot blocking and stuff like that as well, and all of the things that you just cannot do in an official app that you can do if you're using the free resources. Oh, and obviously, I mentioned this in a video the other day, but the other, at least preferred, way to watch shows, no matter what website I'm on, official or unofficial, lately has just been, I run a HDMI out from my GPU. If you have a good computer that can run multiple monitors, just run that out to my TV. The refresh rate's still great, looks great, easy to control from the computer. Just another option that you have. And if you just insist on watching anime on your PS5 for whatever strange reason, in that case, I really just don't know what to tell you, other than learn to use your phone instead. I don't know what else to tell you. It's the whole devil's bargain that you get with a console. It's not meant to be open. They don't want it to be open. They don't want you using third-party apps. They don't want you using third-party websites, even though the device is capable of doing it. As we all understand, it's basically a mid-tier computer. Sony doesn't want you to be able to do that. They don't want you to have that option, so they don't give it to you, even though the device is capable of it. But before I go off the deep end, just rambling on endlessly, the one last thing I'll say about that is, even if you don't like the idea of piracy, even if you feel in your heart of heart that you have to give a subscription to someone to feel right watching anime, at least try to find it in yourself to be open to the idea of using both. If you aren't willing to use both, once again, there are always going to be great classic shows that you will just never have access to unless you buy a $200 used DVD. For example, in the case of freaking Technolize back there, there's nowhere to stream it. There's just nowhere to stream it. There's nowhere to stream Cross-Ange. As I mentioned recently, Black Lagoon and Claymore are falling off the Crunchyroll licenses, and that's just going to continue. Licenses for old shows are just going to continue to fall off, and if they're making more money off of the new seasonal shonen stuff, they're not going to care that those licenses are falling off, so you're just going to lose access to them. So just, at the very least, just be open to it. Just be open to watching the show where you can get it. And obviously, if you still feel unsafe about the whole thing, there's plenty of resources out there if you look for them that explain how this stuff works, how to do it safely, where to find stuff, blah, blah, blah. This was supposed to be a short video. It's 9 pages. How have I been recording for an hour and a half? Anyway, I hope that this was helpful. I've got all this information that I've accumulated through my collecting and through my research and through making all of these videos. I might as well share it all, even if what should have been a 12-minute video turns into however long this is gonna be. But yeah, I'm gonna shut up now. Peace, as always. And don't forget, cancel that PlayStation Plus and cancel that Crunchyroll.